any problem. But then again, also, I think it's also high time that the IEBC can be allowed to be independent and act independent to make their own path without interference. Because you remember the last time I talked about this back and forth and the kind of sabotage that is coming right at this period of time. It's likely to throw we might likely to have people throwing fingers back at IEBC for not providing a free, fair and credible election.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
yeah. Sorry, but then again for IEBC, I think there are so many loopholes. I don't know, maybe you can look at that later, but I was just trying to answer your question. As long as it follows suit, and I don't think there's any problem. Maybe we can look at the loopholes later on.
So maybe I'll just repeat that part of information for the interest of Dr. Joseph Nyenchama. And I don't know, Samuel Tawish, good morning. Are you there, or are you still trying to join?
Thank you, Miriam, for having me on the show. And I think foremostly what we need to stress is that we should not do anything that will compromise the ability of IEBC to guarantee Kenyans a free, fair and credible election come 2022 or any election that we'll have thereabout. Miriam, I'm saying this because you've seen the kind of complaints and lamentation coming from the IEBC. That one, they are lacking enough and necessary funding to carry out its activities. They are also feeling like maybe the political players are not doing as much to help the commission really deliver on its mandate. And I think this kind of plea comes at a time when first and foremostly Kenyans are being asked to come out and register in numbers so that they can be in a position to determine the kind of leadership that they will want come 2022 general election. And I think it is a very, very important exercise that every Kenyan really should take seriously if they want to make change in as far as the trajectory of the leadership of this country is concerned. Mm-hmm. But the biggest challenge, Miriam, like IEBC has pointed out, I think when it comes to the issue of funding, when it comes to other issues of logistical challenges that it is facing, I think government must rise to the occasion and make sure that they provide any requisite requisite things or requests that IEBC has brought on board, so that by the end of the day, they're not going to complain or apportion blame to government or to any other institution or a particular individual that it is because of them or their failure that the commission was not able really to guarantee or provide Kenyans with a free, fair and credible election. Mm-hmm. If we do not do that, Miriam, then I think we'll be setting up this country for chaos. And I do not think that we are ready for that. We are moving past what we have witnessed in the past in terms of ugly elections which have been contested, a part of which has likely been blamed on IEBC for lack of its adequate preparedness. And if there's anything we can do to remedy such kind of loopholes, then I think this is the moment, so that as we head into 2022 general election, there will not be any excuses whatsoever as to why IEBC cannot give us a free, fair and credible election. Okay. I submit, Miriam.
Okay, thank you. But the bone of contention in this matter, why Chebukati is raising these issues, is because the government now seeks to want to be involved with the funding especially, and just in case there's another foreign entity coming in to fund IEBC, then the government wants to know who this person is, or which this entity is. And so the bone of contention of the matter is the state's decision to deploy an agent of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to purportedly oversee the Commission's financial engagements with foreign agencies. Now, if you're going to engage with foreign agencies and you are an electoral commission of any country in the world, does the government not have a right to know who these entities are, and what conditions do they even have? When it comes to the funding that they're offering to the IEBC?
Miriam, the government of Kenya, just like any government globally, has the obligation and responsibility, first of all, to safeguard our people and safeguard the interests of our people. And if there's any entity or an individual who is ready and willing to fund such a very crucial and critical exercise that matters when it comes to governance, then I think it is incumbent upon the IEBC to permit government to have its representation, or at least to oversee whatever kind of funding or donations that IEBC is receiving from the foreign institutions. Miriam, they say he who pays the piper calls the tune. And in that respect, Miriam, it is important that government really gives a keener look onto the activities of IEBC, especially as we head into 2022 general election. Who knows? Perhaps these institutions or individuals who are coming out purportedly to give donations and funding to the activities of IEBC could be having a hidden agenda altogether. We do not want to have any premonition as to why they are coming out to support IEBC, but I think there has to be a clear channel within which they will be engaging government directly, so that they come out through maybe the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the Ministry of Finance and say, this is what we are offering to help IEBC deliver on its mandate, but not directly giving the money to IEBC, because by the end of the day, we also want transparency and accountability as Kenyans. And I think even those who are giving monies to IEBC will equally need that transparency and accountability. And that can only be guaranteed if government itself is involved in such kind of transactions, without which then I think everything will be done in the dark. And by the end of the day, it will just be blame game and pointing fingers, when now we get to understand that maybe monies have been swindled, or that money has not served the purpose with which it was intended for. I submit, Miriam.
Very well, thank you so much. And now, Dr. Nyanchama, I'm sure now you have the grip of what we're talking about this morning. So in your perspective, is the government right in its decision to deploy an official from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the IEBC, so that to oversee the Commission's financial engagements, especially with other foreign agencies?
I think for me, Miriam, firstly, it is puzzling because, the mere fact that the word foreigner comes into mind does not go necessarily hand to hand with integrity and honesty. For much too long, we always imagine that anything coming from outside is of good value, is of high integrity. For me, the law is very clear, Miriam. The government shall fund IEBC to ensure that the elections are both transparent and credible in all aspects. In fact, my suggestion is this, Miriam. For IEBC to be independently executing its mandate, what should happen is this, which has not happened. Once they submit their budget to Treasury, of course, to government through Treasury, and once Parliament approves the budget of various independent commissions, what should happen is that immediately upon approval, the total amount, whether it is 60 billion, should be transferred from the consolidated fund to the Commission's account. And you see, the Commission is an organ of government where all governance structures now will be observed. Any infringement of any process should, of course, attract the eyes of the monitoring agencies like anti-corruption and others. That should be the procedure. The problem, Miriam, where the problem is, you are funding IEBC piecemeal. Either when you see they are not playing ball, you withhold. The key one, Miriam, is this. Upon the approval of the budget, let the total amount of budget so approved be transferred to the account of the independent commission. And that's what should also happen to judiciary. This issue of ministry appointing state agent to look over it, it may create a perception of not doing things above board. I'm not saying there is something wrong, but you see, what you should strive to is not to create a negative perception about the functions you are about to execute. That is what should be guarded against. And now that we're approaching elections, any such a perception should be done away with at all costs, because it may, of course, has indirect consequences of people even refuting elections that government had a hand. It was babysitting IEBC, and IEBC needs to ensure that that tag is not labeled against it. Mm-hmm. For now, Miriam, I submit that's my perspective.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. Now, the commission chaired by Wafula Chebukati has now accused the state of trying to micromanage it by interfering in its autonomy. In a TAS letter dated September 17th and addressed to the Foreign Affairs PS Ambassador Macharia Kamau, Chebukati has claimed the suspicious directive has staged a cash crisis. He says the commission is not accountable to a government ministry or state department, but parliament, and it enjoys varying degrees of financial autonomy and accountability. We reiterate that the Commission's independence in the performance of its functions, which shall not be subject to the control of any authority as envisaged in the Constitution, Chebukati says. This move by the government, is it tantamount to interference, as the Commission's chair, Chebukati, here is alluding? Sharon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miriam. And like I mentioned, I think this is an issue of sabotage, and probably, Chebukati, whatever ground that, Chebukati is trying to seek is because maybe he can foresee, even when you talk about, the introduction of, the government, trying to come in, but again, like I mentioned, I think as long as what does the law say about this is that the government should be able to fund the electoral process. But then there's a need of public participation between the state and the IEBC to firm up and see if at all they are not able to fund this, then do we need to have the a foreign do we need to have foreign aid from a different body from foreign, but then again there's also a question of integrity and honesty, and could there be an ill motive behind this, or this state body could be something that that we are not, could you be able, I'm trying to also read between the lines that when a foreign aid is introduced, there could also be an ill motive behind it. So I think as long if there can be a public participation, then the IEBC and the state to deliberate on that, then I don't think there's a problem.
Okay, all right, thank you. And now the IEBC boss says the state does not need to plant its agent in the name of a liaison officer, as the agency submits to the president and the speakers of parliament and a sufficient annual report. This report details the commission's functions, performance on its activities, affairs, and financial statements. Of importance is that the Commission reports its engagement with development partners and donors. So, of course, IEBC is saying this, this staff from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is being planted into the IEBC to look into how the IEBC is getting this money and how it is spending, says this is tantamount to interference. But we know when IEBC wants money, they've come out and held, press conferences and, accusing the offices responsible with funding it, which is the government, of not giving it enough money. So should the concern of IEBC be that you're getting the money, so whichever way the government, maybe will liaise on behalf of IEBC, get the funding, and then channel it to the IEBC, as one of you have suggested? Or why is it that Chebukati seems to be struck by the government's involvement? If there's nothing to worry about? Because on the flip side, one must start thinking, what is it the IEBC is hiding, or is IEBC running away from accountability? Because if there's nothing to hide in your accounts or what is happening in the IEBC, even as the Commission prepares for the elections next year, so why would you care? Because all you want is money, right? Samuel Tawish, other Kenyans would reason like that. Tawish.
Sorry, Miriam, I went offline a bit, so I cannot quite trust maybe the question you're asking exactly.
All right. I think I'll go to Dr. Nyanchama. He will answer that. It is such a lengthy, and then I'll come back to you with another question. Dr. Nyanchama, if you got what I was asking Tawish, please, could you respond?
Miriam, for me, sometimes also IEBC baffles me. When you see government behaving such a way, through intelligence, then there is something they know. And IEBC is resisting. The way the suggestion is going is that there is something that government could be knowing IEBC was trying to do underhand. And they must be put to account for every activity so that it's transparent. As you rightly put it, if you have nothing to hide, you don't care who's watching. And I think that is the bottom line. Why do you want to do things in darkness? Because so long as they don't interfere with the elections, the procedure of ensuring that the person who wins the election is the one who's declared. If it is only the financial aspect, only monitoring, I don't see much problem. Unless there is something which we don't know. I think they ask, in short, what I'm saying, what is IEBC fearing for? That's the question. It is only them to answer, Miriam. Mm-hmm. Ask them, what are they fearing from being monitored on how they use these resources? For me, again, if there is any aid from foreign land, the procedure is that money must be all remitted to government, and then government regenerates it to IEBC for purposes of audit trail. That is the procedure. I don't know these gymnastics here and there, becoming IEBC chair, you want to play politics? No, remain independent, get focused. And if there is anything, just appeal it to the right body, discuss and agree. You don't issue press statements. You saw I was shocked, somebody who's in presidence issuing a press statement. I mean, it's like when you are married to a person, you are announcing that I hear my husband want to come back to me. I mean, it's embarrassing. I don't know what has happened to our leaders, Miriam. I don't want to say much, but my take is, what is IEBC fearing? Mm-hmm. I submit, madam.
All right, thank you. I think I'll pose that question to Tawish. Tawish, some Kenyans might think, okay, so what you want is money. So whichever way the government can go about it, secure this money on your behalf and channel it to your accounts, because that is what you want funding to prepare for next year's elections. And on the flip side, Kenyans would think, so why do you not want another person in there? What is it that you're hiding if, your dealings are above board? Does it matter, really, for the sake of accountability?
Yes, Miriam, for sure. It is like there's some mischief that IEBC is trying to play in regards to the preparation ahead of the 2022 general election. And if you listen to Dr. Joseph Nyanchama's submission very keenly, he asked the question, rather he posed, what is it that IEBC is fearing? And I think I can't agree more with him with the sentiment or the question that he's posing. Because if they are doing anything in good faith and without any hidden agenda, then I think they should be more obliged really to cooperate with government and ensure that there's scrutiny of how they are going to spend the money that the government has allocated through its budgetary or even any foreign donation that should be coming in aid of IEBC's activities. And I think, like Dr. Nyanchama did mention, it is indeed an obligation of government to ensure that any foreign donations that come to the country, leave alone IEBC, is actually scrutinized to understand what is the intent of, first of all, how much is it, and what is the intent of such kind of funding. Who knows, maybe Miriam, assuming today the international donors come out and give IEBC money in tune of billions, and they give them, they dictate as to how they're going to conduct that election. Or the condition will be make sure that maybe person A or B is the one who's going to win that particular election. Will it really be compromising the peace, stability, and the credibility of the election in itself? Because once the integrity and the credibility of the election has been compromised, in itself really translates to lack of peace and tranquility like we have witnessed in the past. So it is important that government, through its relevant apparatus, can be able to do a thorough scrutiny, even including members of the civil organizations or non-governmental organizations like the Transparency International, the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Office of the DCI, and others are able really to have a scrutiny of how what kind of monies are coming in and from what quarters and for what purpose, and how IEBC really intends to spend that money. Because it's not only enough for them to ask for money if they cannot give us a clear roadmap with which they want or they intend to spend that money. This is very critical, and it's something that IEBC cannot give us a hocus pocus or take us around or try to lay around excuses or unreasonable excuses for that matter, Miriam. They should come out clean and say, yes, this is the budget that we require to carry out an election or this critical exercise come 2022. And maybe looking into what government has budgeted for them, it could be maybe insufficient to some extent. And therefore, if there is any institution, any individual, any foreign nation that wants to have an input to make sure that Kenya has a credible election and that IEBC's capacity and ability to conduct that election is not compromised, especially on the financial front, they have to engage the relevant government agencies directly so that Kenyans get to know that IEBC has gotten this money and this is how it has been spent. Anything short of it, Miriam, I think it raises more mischief from the part of IEBC, and it's something that must be called out.
Okay. Now, on July 12th, the government directed that it has to approve any foreign funding to the IEBC and that it will be the one to initiate such request. The government cited attempts by foreign entities to interfere with the conduct of elections and asked embassies, missions, international organizations, and foreign bodies keen to support 2022 polls to wait. In a letter to diplomats, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo said the state would bear the sole prerogative to coordinate election-related needs and resource gaps that may call for partnership. That makes sense, Sharon.
Thank you, Miriam. I think there's a question of the deep state. Maybe that is what I believe IEBC is fearing, because as much as I believe it's not there, but we should not also really deny facts that in one way or another there could be. And I believe in one way or another these deep, the foreign are able to influence, the process of election in one way or another. So I think from where I sit, that is what that is what the IEBC could be fearing. I don't know.
Okay, perhaps I get to use perspective of that, Dr. Nyanchama, that letter that the government wrote on the 12th of July, asking other foreign entities and to, missions, embassies, and international organizations and foreign bodies keen to supporting 2022 polls to wait. And in that letter, to diplomats, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo said the state would bear the sole prerogative to coordinate election-related needs and resource gaps that may call for partnership, as it should be, really.
Yes, Miriam, as I said, legally, by the way, if any foreign agency or country wants to assist in terms of aid or whatever form of cash, legally, let's people be honest, it must be channeled through government. That is why, as far as the act is concerned, it's only government which is by law required to fund IPC. So if any other external branch has to augment for such a funding, then it must be channeled through government. And then government now will tell IPC, as earlier stated, we didn't have enough money, but we have got a good friend. Now we have enough money. We expect you to carry out elections credibly. And then they remit the money to IPC, which of course should go through normal procedure of auditing later to ensure that all the expenditures were done as required, and the Auditor General issues the report. By the way, IPC needs to be honest, is that it has no mandate in any form to even demand that we want to be assisted from foreign land. The only person with the sole responsibility is government of today. And what is worrying me, Miriam, is where people rush to the press. You see, if there is even any concerns, IPC needs to engage all relevant government organs and agree or disagree. Even going to the press, sort of like a tone of protest, is your last resort, which you should even again refrain from. Anything small you hear in Kenya, you see people have called a press, and you hear them saying, "Hatutakubali." No. You exhaust all avenues. If you think there is a challenge, me, I urge IPC, engage your government protocols in a decent manner. Exhaust all. Look for, just persuade them to see the sense. The problem is that in Kenya is a political society. The only political country, in fact, which is so politicized in a poisonous manner that I get surprised. Everything is read from a political eye. IPC has the card to lead the election credibly. People may come with the money, but you must remain with your mandate. In short, to summarize on this matter, government has a right to redirect how money should be received. It can even differ, because it may differ if it deems that it has enough money. There is nothing you can do about it. You cannot decide going to the press saying, serikali imekataa tusipewe pesa. No, the government has told you has no money. So, Chebukati should deal with the government. There is procedure of solving conflict. This is even, in fact, the problem we have even with the deputy president, the president. We politicize everything. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, and as we conclude this conversation, that letter dated the 12th of July, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs disclosed that there was significant interest from embassies, missions, and international organizations in Nairobi and abroad to support the upcoming general election. But Chebukati holds that the move, and also having to rely on the exchequer 100%, amounts to interfering with the independence of the electoral management body. But I thought, the IEBC should be relying on the government, if not 100%, I don't know. But also, in that letter, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said Kenya is cognizant of recently orchestrated events and experiences meant to interfere and sometimes lead to skewed national election outcomes globally. So what the Minister of Foreign Affairs perhaps was saying is that some of this funding that comes from foreign entities, they come with another interest, tag outside. We are going to help you, but these are the preconditions. We are going to help you, but you have to do this. And so, as I'll ask again, Samuel Tawish, as we conclude, is the government right in taking this stand in protecting the integrity of our elections?
Yes, Miriam, if I heard you very right, you did say that according to that name presser or letter that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is right. They did say it is the prerogative of the government to ensure they give funding to IEBC or make sure that Kenyans get a free, fair, and credible election. That means that whatever kind of things that IEBC government is supposed to do in support of IEBC activities, then it is its prerogative to ensure that that is done. Because again, they do not want the blame by the end of the day. Assuming something went wrong, Miriam, if we had an election, God forbid, I mean, if the people of Kenya and even our neighbors and everybody else, the observers, will not go out there and begin blaming outsiders or the external forces and say the election was compromised because a foreign agency or donors came out and funded IEBC to conduct that election in favor of a particular candidate or against a particular candidate. They will place the blame at the door of government. And in this case, President Uhuru Kenyatta, understanding that this is a suspicion kind of election, a suspicion politics, it is a high octane for that matter. It's something that is very delicate. We need to handle it with a lot of care or utmost care, if you like. And anything that is short of it, Miriam, is something that we should not entertain as a people. And therefore, IEBC has to come out, just like we have insisted on this program, just like my other colleague panelists have mentioned, but they have to do the right thing. And doing the right thing in this sense is ensuring that they go by what the government is talking about. Of course, Sharon Gitonga is a bit skeptical or seems to be siding with IEBC in the sense that she feels IEBC is not so much optimistic that maybe government is going to give them necessary funding. Because again, maybe there could be intentions to compromise the credibility of that election. But I do not believe so. Of what interest would the government want to compromise the activities of such a critical organization, especially when we are going into a transitional election, an election where an incumbent will not be contesting? I do not think so. It is in the interest of the government of Kenya and more so President Uhuru Kenyatta to ensure that the people of Kenya have a free, fair, and credible election. And anything that they should do as government on their part, they have to do it as a matter of obligation and responsibility, so that by the end of the day, Kenyans cannot place blame on President Uhuru Kenyatta or his administration for failing Kenyans by deliberately, of course, compromising funding to the IEBC as far as the coming election is concerned. So I want to submit that indeed, Miriam, we as Kenyans are appealing to government to make sure that they do everything they can and support IEBC in its activities, so that by the end of the day, we want to see really who is going to give excuses as to why we cannot have a free, fair, and credible election. We want an election where a winner and a loser can shake hands and agree that indeed this was a fair play. Just like yesterday, while I was watching Liverpool game against Man City, it was a kind of a high-octane game. But I could see the two coaches from both sides of the team, that is Manchester City and Liverpool, of course, hugging each other and agreeing indeed it was a very good game. Much as they do, or a 2-2, but they agree that it is a fair game. We want that kind of a contest even when it comes to election, where people don't go into an election with the mindset and the attitude that it's a must win. That if I lose an election, it wasn't fair, it wasn't credible. That whoever has won that election doesn't embrace the one who has lost an election. We want an election where the supporters of either of the candidates or among the candidates really come and embrace each other after such a critical contest. I submit, Miriam.
All right, very well. And that is where we end our conversation. And of course, this is a topic that we shall continue following up for you, even as IEBC continues with its preparation for next year's general election. Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Nyanchama, Samuel Tawish, and Sharon Gitonga. I'll be back here at 3 p.m., this time with the latest news from the continent of Africa on the show Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Bye-bye for now.
must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.